The internet is full of fitness experts, thousands upon thousands of them. It's like a plague, an epidemic. But a good deal of these experts have very little idea what they're talking about. They're usually just people who have really good genetics and build good physiques off of that. They then get a following and assume they must be geniuses in the art of fitness. These influencers appease the largest demographic of people, the untrained masses. Think of someone like V-Shred. They promise things like six-pack abs in 5 minutes or toned arms from weird movements with no weight. They often rely on spectacle and the apparent ease with which they make their audience believe they can get into shape. These are usually conventionally attractive people with mass appeal and are essentially marketing tools who are ultimately very unhelpful, which most people learn after they buy their first course from them and get literally no results. Free workout plan in the bio, by the way. There are, however, people who look like they would fall into this category but are great content creators, namely Mike Thurston. And if you're a beginner who just wants to get inspired by someone good looking with a great physique, but who actually has decent advice and a charismatic personality, he's my go-to. But these are not the influencers we're going to be talking about today. No, today we're going to be talking about science-based fitness influencers. There is a massive problem with science-based bodybuilding. The problem initially stems from the sheer simplicity which is bodybuilding. Your objective is just to essentially fight gravity with specific muscle groups at one time to induce stress in your muscles and grow. This can be achieved in several different ways, which can be with dumbbells, barbells, pulley systems, or one's own body weight. Then it is just important to just add additional stress as time progresses and you get stronger to push further growth. And this is called progressive overload, and it's what leads to muscle gain. But like many things, people tend to overcomplicate the simple, to try to make it easier or more efficient. But despite being incredibly simple, bodybuilding is not easy, and over-theorizing doesn't help anyone grow beyond the effort they put into the sport. It's one of the few things in life where effort directly correlates to results, and trying to shortcut that often leads to a lesser outcome. Now look, I'm admittedly someone who loves to delve deep into the theory of anything I'm interested in. I like to understand why things work the way they do, be that watches and learning the different mechanics and complications, music and the creative process through which artists create, and of course bodybuilding. And I don't think it's a waste of time. Understanding the functions and mechanics of muscles helps you understand what you need to do in order to achieve growth. But that and diet are the extent of what you need to learn. The problem comes when people begin to change the basics, claiming that old fundamental movements are somehow inefficient and should be replaced with overly complicated versions of pre-existing movements. Like a number of these science-based lifters claiming that the lat pull-down is ineffective and over-engineering new ways to perform the movement, which are way too complicated, like moving at a 45-degree angle and tilting your wrists in a certain way for an extra 2% muscle activation. But yet the guys I see with the biggest backs built their backs from doing standard lat pull-downs and pull-ups. Or a lot of these nerds telling people that the standard bench press doesn't work and you need to twist your arm in a certain way and over squeeze and arch your back. And this may work for powerlifting, but that's not what we're talking about. Many bodybuilders have built incredible chests from bench pressing without overthinking their hand position or how their backs and glutes are involved in the movement. If the focus of the exercise is the chest, then that is all that should be considered. Learn enough form not to hurt yourself, but beyond that, go off of mind-muscle connection. Mind-muscle connection is the ability to consciously feel the muscle activation when performing exercises. This allows you to focus on the proper muscle groups and achieve maximum activation and contraction, but this is only created through training fundamentals for a long time. And here comes the reason why I'm so annoyed at the science-based community. You'll notice that when you enter the gym, the only people performing these strange science-based optimal movements are usually skinny teenagers who saw them on TikTok. Why is that? Because established lifters who have already built an impressive physique know what works and they don't bother with strange movements because they got that big, not from doing an overextended tricep pushdown, but just feeling the tricep activate in a standard movement. So these young impressionable kids come in and do overcomplicated stuff for no reason because they spend more time theorizing on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube than actually getting into the gym and training. They're thinking about becoming Mr. Olympia before they've even started. You shouldn't be figuring out how to optimize a Ferrari when you haven't got your shitbox to start. Or another analogy, you shouldn't be trying to drive like Senna when you haven't figured out how to drive around your neighborhood yet. There's so much confusing and conflicting information out there for beginners. Some person will tell them that the leg extension is completely inefficient and not optimal based on some obscure study from 1993 which had 3 test subjects and probably faulty equipment, but they'll fudge the data to prove a point. While someone else will say that the leg extension is the only way to grow big legs and squats and other exercises are worthless. So who does the beginner listen to? No one. They should try it out and see if it works for them, and it probably will. The reason why there is so much conflicting and confusing information is that there are so many people who want to be online trainers in the space. But bodybuilding has been done for so long by so many people that most of us already understood. Sure, there's further room to learn more, but for the time being, it's kind of a waste of time unless you're an expert. But these trainers can't tell people to just do the standard exercises which are known to work. They have to differentiate themselves, so they make up some new ludicrous variation of the exercise so they stand out. But really, all they're doing is confusing beginners. I love this sport, and a lot of it is being ruined by creators making posts telling people that you're benching wrong, or you're doing this wrong, and causing people to overanalyze their lifts and potentially do them wrong. We're all built differently.
I'm built different.
So if you tell someone to bench in the same way you do, they may end up using their shoulders more or hurt their arm or something like that. Some online trainers show people how to figure out how their bodies work. Even Chris Bumstead has done that, and it helps people understand how they should train, and that's great. But that should be it. Guiding pathways that allow people to find the best way for them to train. Not nonsense about how you have to bench or squat or do anything with very specific movements. But the greatest sin of science-based lifting is it also takes a lot of the fun out of training. One of the joys of being a beginner is figuring it out as you go along. Figuring out what works best for your body and adapting based on that. We're all different. So finding out the best way for you to train should be a journey that you go on, not one which is pre-prescribed to you by some nerd in a lab coat with exactly where you need to hold the bar or position your back or anything like that. But when you start by getting into doing weird stuff to try over-optimize, it takes away a lot of that joy. You should learn just enough to not get hurt and get lifting, growing, and becoming stronger with the basics. Godspeed.